Welcome to another great session of Ask the Expert on Contingent Workforce Strategies LinkedIn group. And I've got a really cool topic today and a really cool guest. I've known this guest for a long time in our industry. And I really wanted to talk on this topic because, there's always a decision on who will own these different contingent programs. And one of the big stakeholders is always going to be procurement. So I wanted to talk on the topic of getting into the mind of a procurement expert and looking to optimize your contingent workforce program. So I've got Wayne Burgess here. He's been a friend of mine for a very long time. He's got over 25 years experience in procurement and supply chain. Much of that had been an Accenture, a serial entrepreneur and current founder and CEO of Conexis. So Wayne, thank you for coming on the show and spending some time with me today.
Yeah, absolutely, Jeff. Pleasure to be here. I love the Ask the Expert sessions. I'm so excited to be on. So looking forward to the conversation.
So, to kind of get started, some people see procurement as a stakeholder, and salespeople will often just see it as a name and a title. But, why don't we define a little bit more about what is the role of procurement in general, and then kind of take it a step further.
Yeah.
And so that's the broad aspect, because it's not always just about procurement and CW.
Right.
But what is the role of procurement in the CW programs as a sub question there?
Yeah, I think for me, as I've grown up in the industry, first, most procurement professionals kind of fall into the space. Very few make a decision, I'm going to become a procurement professional. So I think as I fell into the space 25 years ago, for me, as I looked at what we would call procurement experts, who were my mentors and people I looked up to and still look up to this day, I think, as we look at procurement and what their role is in general, it's delivering value to the organization. So, and defining that value is critical. Regardless of what you're trying to achieve, you need to know what that value is, and that the drivers of value are different in all different types of organizations, and all the different departments and resources and employees and workers. They all define value as it relates to their job and what they're trying to do. So it's tough sometimes to define that value, but really what you're trying to do is deliver that value. And then in this contingent workforce world and program, you then drill down into what are the value drivers that are important to an organization. And so you have a hiring manager who says, I just want people. I need a good quality person. I need them to fit my budget, and I need them to show up and deliver what I need to deliver. And then you raise it up into the corporate goals, and you need to mitigate risk. You need to meet all these control requirements and policy requirements. So defining value is critical. Delivering it is another thing, but ultimately that's what you're trying to do.
No, it's true, right? And so, one of the things that always I'm asked and we hear a lot about is procurement or HR. Who should own the program? What's your take on that? And how do you optimize that relationship? Because you can't really have a program that's just run in procurement without some sort of HR, or at least thoughts of HR policy being implemented. What do you think about program ownership? And then, let's talk about.
So I think you're going to see that more and more often, organizations transferring that ultimate ownership to HR. That doesn't mean they go and build contingent workforce programs. It just means that they're going to own the ultimate, combine those numbers, know what their workforce is, know what they're doing with that workforce, why they're doing it, and be able to optimize that workforce, because having them split is not good for your organization. You could be, maybe there's a business case to be made that, if you've got 2,000 contingent workers, maybe 500 of those should be full-time employees, or Maybe you've got employees that you don't need full-time and they should be more a contingent basis. So understanding that demand and supply profile is critical, and then optimizing it as well.
And the role of procurement as that transitions from owning the program, right, to supporting the program, how do you see that kind of rolling out, and the role of procurement in the programs going forward? When
Yeah,
HR, let's say, it's the ownership of the programs transferred over to HR and talent acquisition.
yeah, I think it comes down to procurement keeping in its lane, and knowing what it's good at and delivering that. I think you need to understand that. I think if you're a procurement professional worth your weight, you will follow a standard model. And as I grew up in procurement, I watched the experts in the industry, and I think they all followed kind of a similar model. And if you're doing your job in the contingent workforce category, whether you're first in on a first gen program, you've never done this before, or whether you're coming into a new company and you've done it 20 times before, I think that you apply kind of the same 4 or 5 steps in that model. And you stay in your lane, you let HR own their piece, and you do what you do best, which I think is first you understand. So you learn everything you can about how that organization buys that contingent worker today. You understand the policies, you understand the demand profile, you understand the current supply profile. So that's your baseline of the organization as it relates to that category. And then you want to compare. So you want to go out and you want to understand, what are our competitors doing in this space? What are best in class solutions? And then I think you overlay the two and you identify those gaps. So what that does is that creates a business case and an opportunity assessment. It says, here's our prize from a contingent workforce category. You involve all of the key parties, so HR being one of them. But I think the most critical party are your heaviest users and the biggest spenders. They're the ones that own the budget. They're the ones that are dealing with the frustrations. So, regardless of who owns the category in your organization, the most important people are the users and the spenders. And so you need to understand what their frustration points are. And once you've got that business case, then you go and you build your program, and you focus on closing those gaps and delivering the value that closing those gaps will entail, whether that's service quality, cost savings, risk mitigation, all of those things that we typically talk about. And then you track, and then you just keep doing that cycle over and over and over again, making sure you understand, making sure you know what's coming best in class, and constantly scanning the market for better solutions, better ways of doing things, and seeing how you can improve. So I think procurement needs to know its place. Don't get into a political fight over, we need to own this. Just go deliver value. I think that's the ultimate advice I would give anybody.
No, it's great, and quite honestly, either way, if HR owns it, you're kind of playing the same role
Yeah.
in staying in your lane. Or if you own it, HR and yourself play the similar tasks and roles and do the same things, because that's usually what your expertise is in, right?
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
who owns it really isn't of huge concern, right? Because different orgs will be different, where it's going to be owned. Some won't change. Some will see duplication in procurement trying to do talent acquisition activities and want to move it over. But I think even in those situations where HR owns it, they need procurement expertise, and vice versa. When procurement owns it, they need the HR expertise around talent acquisition, and don't be shy. Have you actually, talking on that topic, some of the programs either you've been part of or have seen as a vendor, have you seen where procurement has successfully integrated HR and talent acquisition in? And it always comes to mind now as direct sourcing has become more popular. Why create a talent acquisition team in procurement by outsourcing it to a curation specialist and all this extra stuff, where you probably have a talent acquisition team already in HR? Have you seen some of these programs where you've integrated in and brought talent acquisition and HR to the table?
Yeah, I definitely. I think where procurement and HR, when they sit at the table, I think it's critical. Where I've seen it work well is where they try to understand the value each can bring and what's important to the organization. So procurement understanding from an HR and talent acquisition perspective. Okay, what's important to you? How can we help you with the tools and what we bring to the table? And then HR talent acquisition, how can you help us? Because ultimately, you're delivering not to yourselves, you're delivering to the business. And so you need to kind of have that heart to heart and say, look, ultimately, we're delivering high quality people at within a budget, in an efficient manner that meets the demand of our organization. So let's figure out the best way to do that. So I think that's where it works really well. Where it doesn't work well is where there's a political play happening, and it just is an absolute nightmare. And I've seen both. And when you've got those organizations and you're able to, as a third party, kind of bring them together and stay focused on what are you trying to achieve ultimately. It's not trying to build your fiefdom here. It's trying to deliver something to your customers. So that's where it works really well. And then from there, you define, okay, what are the metrics to success and how can we as procurement help deliver those, and talent acquisition and HR and procurement, because there's so many different channels of supply in the talent world, like direct sourcing, talent pools, staffing agencies, internal recruitment departments, your own hiring managers bringing forward resources that they want to bring onto their project. You need to know what that supply is. You need to understand it and develop the best channels. And talent acquisition and HR can help you do that because they're the experts in that space. So
Yeah, no, it really makes sense. And having that strong partnership, and you've mentioned it a couple of times, stay out of the politics of the fiefdom mentality. And I guess getting into a partnership from a procurement perspective, often, and correct me if I'm wrong, there's a lot of cost savings initiatives within the procurement groups. And so if you can maybe like look at some of those priorities and the way bonuses are paid, and you get that out on the table and say, listen, you can own cost savings procurement, let us own HR policy and risk management and what drives theirs, and then that keeps the worry about fiefdoms out of the picture, right?
Yeah, I think the thing that frustrated me, the thing I learned very early on in the contingent workforce space, coming at it from a procurement perspective, and previously, sourcing computers and pens and paper, inanimate objects, right? Is the thing that I learned very quickly in the contingent workforce world is it's an emotional buy. So it's a very emotional, volatile procurement. Nothing like buying an inanimate object or a service. So many things can go wrong in the cycle of bringing on a worker, whether it's the hiring manager have too many steps in the process, whether it's the procurement where they can impact negatively is over negotiating markups and driving down that margin and profitability profile for the supplier, because we know recruiters are they make their money off their commission, and they're going to pick and choose which company that they're going to focus on and work on. And so, if you drive down costs too much and you're all focused on cost savings, you can actually do more harm than good in helping your organization fill those roles that are critical, often to customer delivery, or if you're building something for internal purposes, you can impact and have seats empty that you need in that role. So I think it's very important procurement understands in this category that quite often, getting quality suppliers that can provide quality talent and focus on what the budget of that user is. And if you can come under budget for them, then maybe that's the cost savings. It's not, hey, we were at a markup of 35% and now we're down to 28. Well, what has that done to the delivery of your program too?
Yeah, no, and that's a great point. So, this has been an unbelievable conversation. I have a feeling we could continue
Forever.
and continue and continue. But, I always kind of end with, if I'm in procurement and somebody just said, hey, can you manage this spend that's decentralized? Let's call it a Gen 1 program. And I'm just starting out. what advice would you give me to kind of not get overwhelmed and take some of the first good steps to managing a program and bringing in more centralization and management to it?
Yeah, I think it's I think the understanding part is really the first step. So and it gives you a focus and it gives you a work path to kind of keep your head down and go start learning. I think for me, it was always when I was thrown into a situation like that, it was let me go meet with the big spenders, the heavy users. Let me understand their pain points. And for me, it was critical to get one or two quick wins. And it can be as simple as this supplier's, being a real pain, and I need you. I'm hoping someone can solve this problem for me. Getting on a call, solving the problem, and you make a friend for life. And these are key influencers as you go down the path of trying to drive that positive change in your organization. If you've got them on board, that will, slick that runway for you, and you will have way more success than kind of putting yourself in a room and doing it all in a vacuum. So I think engaging with those people early on and understanding where their frustrations and pain points are and solving one or two easy ones quickly, it makes their lives easier. And like I said, you'll have a friend and a supporter. And when you need to go present that business case, you've got a referenceable client, and they can, they'll support you in any of those back conversations you might have to have.
Yeah. Oh, it's such great advice, because I remember doing a lot of work with oil and gas companies in trying to centralize the programs. And when the head office person just calls on the intercom to an ops person in the middle of nowhere, Texas or Saskatchewan or wherever, and they're all sitting around a polycom going, yeah. The difference when you show up there, and of course, don't wear your suit from downtown. Right. Suit, you wear your golf shirt or kind of your jeans and drive a pickup truck from the rental agency versus that, and blend in. It creates so much more credibility, and quite honestly, you can then solve your problems and then have conversations on what the future may look like and bring them along for the journey, right? So
yeah, and don't pretend to be something you're not, right? Like don't pretend you're an expert in their space or their space. Just stick to what you know and how you're going to be able to help them solve those problems that they're having, as opposed to trying to pretend you understand their category of spend or their contingent workforce problems or what they're trying to deliver. I think that's key, because these are hardcore operators and they sniff through the BS really quick.
Yeah, no, great advice. Wayne Burgess, I once again can't thank you enough for your time today. Wayne from Conexis VMS, once again, you've founded another amazing company and doing great things for our industry. So again, thank you for your time. It's been a great conversation as always.
Yeah, I loved it. So much fun. Appreciate you having me on. And I look forward to watching the other episodes that keep coming out. So there's so much value. Thanks a lot, Jeff. Appreciate it.
Take care.